Hi everyone, it's February and I'm Lori Michael, specializing in fitness for older adults and seniors. This month's exercise snack video is about what holds you back from exercise. What kind of pain do you possibly have in your body? So we're going to talk this month about wrists and shoulders. And my friend Kim is going to help me with demonstrating what some of those exercises are and what some of the solutions are to some of your problems.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about soreness in your wrists. We're going to be doing exercises such as a push-up or lifting weights. Your wrist could be tender or painful because of the angle of your body in relationship to your hand, for example, in a push-up. So we're going to have Lori demonstrate a push-up. And notice her wrists. The angle of her wrists to her upper arm is pretty much at a 90-degree angle. So when she goes ahead and does her push-up, that puts a lot of pressure on the wrist. Now maybe that doesn't bother you, and that's great. It doesn't bother everybody. But if it does bother you, we have a solution. You can put your hands directly on weights. You want the weights to be large enough so it sits up high enough from the ground so your fingers can go underneath. And then notice her wrists are extended or straight. So as she goes through her push-up now, you don't have the same pressure on the wrist. How's that feel, Lori?
It feels much better. And if I wanted to do a more progressive move, I feel confident in being able to hold the weights in my hands as opposed to doing these on my toes in this position. This is hard for me.
It's that pressure on the wrist. Now don't be afraid of using a somewhat heavy weight because we're not lifting it. We're just using it to help stabilize the wrist in the right position. Another exercise that can bother the wrists is doing an overhead press, often with a barbell. Now if you watch Lori, she can take her hands a little bit wider than her hips and bending the elbows, she can bring the bar to her chest, just underneath her chin. The problem is that when we let the wrists go and the wrists, what we call break. So the palms are going to come back facing the ceiling, and you press the weight over the head. That's going to get very fatiguing and tiring on the wrists. Our solution is to simply extend the wrist. So as you go up and down, your wrists are straight, no pressure on the wrists. And it helps to do this in front of a mirror so that you can see what you're doing, or simply turn your head and look. You can turn your head while you're exercising.
That way I can see that my back is straight too.
Okay, nice job. All right, so the next part of the body we're going to talk about is the shoulder. Lori is going to pick up our little man. As I talked to you a little bit about the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint is a ball and socket joint. It's a very shallow joint. The humerus, which is the upper arm, Lori, why don't you put the upper arm, that's the bone in your upper arm. The top of that bone is called the head of the humerus. And that's what we refer to as the ball in the ball and socket. The socket is the scapula, the shoulder blade, where it attaches. You can see how it attaches right there, perfect, to the head of the humerus. It is not a strong bony connection like it is in our hip. What holds that joint together is ligaments, tendons, and the joint capsule. So as we move, it's very easy to get what we call impingement syndrome. What alleviates impingement syndrome is proper posture and strong rotator cuff muscles. So what Lori's going to demonstrate next is a good exercise to strengthen the rotator cuff muscles. The rotator cuff muscles are four muscles. Four muscles that go around the shoulder joint. They hold the head of the humerus into that socket, into what we call the glenoid fossa. Now, which Lori's demonstrating right now is an exercise called external rotation. The reason she has that towel between her arm and her rib cage is so that she remembers to keep the upper arm connected to the torso. We don't want to lift the arm away. We want to rotate that shoulder joint. So right now, as she pulls across with that tube, her tube is connected to a bar. It could be connected to anything that's stationary, like a doorknob. And now she's switching to internal rotation. So she's going to pull across. She might want to move to the side. So we have that tension on the band, on the tube. And she's going to pull across, once again, keeping the upper arm against the ribs, or in this case, the towel, but just reminds her not to lift the arm away. But she's pulling across, strengthening the internal rotators of the shoulder. And then we want to make sure that we turned around and did the same thing. Okay, so an exercise to literally strengthen the muscles of the shoulder. You can use a light weight, standing with your arms by your side, sternum up. So before we actually lift, she's pointing to her sternum. And you want to have the feeling of sternum up, shoulders down. She's going to bring her arms up to the side and back down. You don't even have to lift your arms up to the height of the shoulder. You can lift them to point below the shoulder joint, whatever's comfortable for you. What keeps the exercise effective and safe is keeping the sternum up. So let's see what happens when Lori collapses her chest. See how her shoulders roll forward. And as she comes up, you can see a lot of tension up in the neck. The mechanics become incorrect. And that's how posture is related to shoulder joint mechanics. Sternum up, shoulders down, arms directly to the side. We can do a shoulder press. She can bring her hands to her shoulders, and she's only going to lift her elbows up to the height of her shoulder. It doesn't even have to go that high. This decreases the weight load a little bit. And notice nice, strong wrists. Nice job, Lori.
Okay, thanks everybody. You know a lot of good information. Share it, comment, and then we'll see you next month. Thanks for listening.